Oh,
Don't have to yell.
Welcome to Ordinance Committee here on August 30th, 2023. Present today are Finance Officer Chandra Phillips, Councilman Schramm, Councilman Klent, and myself. Today, we will be taking a look, hopefully, at 7 different ordinances. The first one being the 2024 budget. City of Winter will readdress the hay bale ordinance. There will be a discussion on Ordinance 1062, load management. Ordinance 1063, a haul route. Resolution 2023-17, a rates resolution. Change order number 1, and then, of course, the contract with the, is it FBO? FBO.
FBO.
Yeah, our FBO, Dave Howard, out at the airport. Item number 1, council, it's ordinance 1060. I'm gonna let Chandra go ahead and lead out and explain what you have in front of you, which will be on first reading, September 5th.
So the very first page that you have, you'll recognize from your books that you had last Thursday. This is now what it looks like with all the transfers going through both revenue and expense wise. Your total budget for 2023 was $19,238,828.42. Again, not sure how I got
where do you see that, please?
in the 2023 total budget line.
About in the middle of the page.
Yep.
Okay,
Your total 2024 budget, $17,121,195. That is 11% down. Understanding the biggest reason for it being that far down, we're not doing the $700,000 sanitation project. We're not doing the 300,000+ IT upgrade and corrections, and we don't have the highway project in both water and sewer. All of those through a huge increase in our budget for the last couple of years. But 17 million, we're right about back to where we were back in 2021, which was right at 18 million. So it's falling into where it needs to be. Total throughout the city, as it sits right now, the city will make $59,000 next year if we meet all revenues and all expenses. So it does balance. You had to take quite a bit. So if you turn to this page right here that has the enterprises down at the bottom, this is part of the actual ordinance. You'll note that electric is going to transfer out $1,067,454. That will all go to general fund. Sewer is going to transfer out $107,482. That will all go to general fund. And municipal jail is going to transfer out $789,950. Of that, the majority of that goes over to dispatch, and a little over 200,000 goes into the general fund from municipal jail. So you transferred in $1,406,129 into the general fund to make it balance.
so dispatcher get somewhere around 500,000?
A little over
580?
Yep.
Okay,
And this does have the 24/7 taken out of it completely. That's your transfer out.
No, it's.
and we're still putting $1 million in the electric reserve?
Yeah, that's in there automatically.
Yep.
So again, when you look at this last page here, it'll show reserve beginning balance. The only reserve that you have now is
in
the electric fund.
Yep,
The bottom line on that page, Brad, in the black,
yep,
those are Chandra's projected unappropriated cash reserves in each of those enterprises.
okay.
We have 1.1 in a reserve in electric.
Yep,
That's what's gonna be taken out.
No,
no, that's your $1 million reserve account that you don't touch unless there's an emergency. Your unappropriated cash, where it's estimated at right now, and understand these are estimated numbers.
I understand they're estimated. It says estimated surplus
Yep,
after giving money to the general fund is 2,661,000. Then it says
you take the reserve out of that because
1,100,000
that's
we're gonna put
separate.
back into the reserve fund. Yeah.
Yep,
So in the money available, if we should vote to spend it, it's 1,561,000. Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
Yep. So we are still contributing to the reserve fund in electricity of 1.1 million. Okay. Because we're gonna need it. Do you know the balance of that reserve fund right now?
I'd have to look.
Just
at-
rough. Is it 6 million?
No, it's 1 million.
This is what we didn't transfer this in, we left it there.
Yeah,
This is what we leave in there.
you only have $1 million in that
But she's
reserve.
taking it out of the surplus.
So it's,
It shows as it,
this
but
is
it's
one
in
of
a
those
s-
municipal accounting
So this
things.
1.1 million does not increase every year?
It does by interest only.
Yep.
Interest only.
Yeah,
Okay, that's news to me.
yeah.
Okay.
This 1.1 million was nothing that we, like, discussed during the budget day. It was already there.
Yeah,
It's
and I
not money we
understand.
took out of 2023 revenues, is what I'm saying. It was already there for umpteen years.
So you'll notice it's at the very top line. This is one of those municipal accounting things. It's at the top line, and then you take it out from the bottom. So technically, it doesn't exist, but you have to show it on your report that you have it. So,
Okay, very good. Okay,
The thing that gives me some hope, comfort, is a couple of years ago, we were told by supervisors that we needed 3 to 4 million available for a crisis situation in electrical. With the 1.1 million and then unappropriated cash of 1,561, we're getting there. We're at 2.65, 2.66 million in unappropriated cash.
now I understand the report.
Yep.
Didn't see the very first line. When
Yeah.
you started out with that 1.1 that you took out at the end. Okay,
And we have another million
in the general fund.
in money market.
That is the million in the money market.
The electrical one? Okay,
the
that's
1.1, yeah.
what I was wondering.
Yep, that's the one.
What do you project unappropriated cash to be?
For the
in-
general fund?
Yeah,
Just right at $1 million.
right at $1 million, okay. Any questions, guys?
So we just present it for approval. Is that right?
That is
Correct.
Okay.
Ordinance 1061, hay bales.
Real quick before you guys get into it, I had a really good conversation with Mr. Jensen yesterday. He is not here in person, because he doesn't want to overdo after his medical situation, but he is very much following along, reading the minutes, watching things that he needs to watch to get you guys what you have asked for. So all of these are things that you guys have requested over the last couple weeks now that we're done with budget. And so he submitted these yesterday for this committee. He did tell me that he hopes to be back in the office well before October 10th. So, and that would be his normal routine then again, before then. So he's got some pretty strict orders at this point in time. 1061 is back on for review.
Which one is that?
Hay bales.
Okay. I do wish that the attorney was here, but I have some information that I think we can get this thing done, but I don't know if it can get done by Monday. But I'd like to present the opportunity that I should have asked you to print this for everybody. We have an ordinance number 1057 that we've been working on. There's sections A, B, C, D, and E already in it that include the word stacked. what I'm proposing is that we eliminate the word stacked out of every one of those A, B, C, and E. D doesn't have the word stacked. So that we would have single layers of hay bales in only industrial or agricultural land. And these bales may be placed in twin rows at least 10 foot apart from other twin rows. That would be added to item number A, which it says, in an area that is zoned as industrial or agricultural, baled materials may be kept for a period of time not to exceed 8 months, and at least once a year the site must be cleared of all hay and similar materials. These bales may be placed in twin rows at least 10 feet apart from other twin rows, which all it means is however much land you have, you can put them, row to row, as long as you have 10 feet between each set of twin rows. No stacking, but then the other requirements that are in this is they couldn't be underneath any overhead primary or distribution lines. They could not be kept in a manner that causes obstruction of visibility at intersections, and I'm just abbreviating that, where the site triangle is required. And at no time shall baled materials be permitted to become infested with rats or other vermin. So it's the same thing that we had before, except without the word stacked. Can't stack them up. Have to be an industrial and agricultural. Oh, you have it? Do you have it, Frank? Oh.
Mr. Jensen did. Every time we do ordinances, guys, we gotta keep them in number. This is the same exact ordinance, 1061.
I didn't know this page was here.
Yeah, 1061 is the exact same ordinance as 1057, but just renumbered according to our current sequence. Correct me
Well,
if
if
I'm
I should.
There were some changes in there because of the fact that we didn't have a clear definition from council as to what
I
to do
didn't know this
with
one
ag and
existed, so all
industrial.
this is the one that we had before.
I think they're real similar, Brad.
Yeah.
It's a lot different. This one is, it's got the airport and everything, but all we really need to do is take out the word stacked. They can't be stacked anywhere. Huh? This is what the council wouldn't approve.
Correct, so it's not even,
I understand that, but it's all I had to work with.
yep,
But if we were gonna look at 1061, huh?
my question to you,
Is
Brad,
not kept stacked within 250 feet. See all this, I don't know that we need all of that
some of
instruction.
that comes down to FAA rules for the airport, Hayland. Has to be so far from
Yeah, but
runway and
that
buildings.
FAA is completely different than somebody with an egg zone.
Correct,
Right.
yeah. But that was taken out of here, so this 161 has in there that you can't have it, period, in ag and industrial. Can add it back in there, that's fine, but so A is now just specifically speaking about hayland.
Instead of the commercial and ag zones.
Correct, yep.
So you want to reference 1057, the old one, introducing
Either
bales.
that or I can make, we can make the changes to this 1061 too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't know that it's absolutely,
These are
Necessary.
actually two different ordinances.
They are.
They are.
One of, this is referring to airport and
Ag
Cemetery.
industrial.
but this is the original 1057.
He can add it back
1061
in,
is-
that's not a problem, to add ag and industrial zoned areas in there. That can be added back in with the twin 10 feet apart. My question is, Brad, you said eliminate stacked in all of the letters. I will tell you that when you do a manger scene, you stack the little bales.
That, and item D does not have any talking at all about stacking.
Okay,
Small
so,
square bales of straw, and this is in your new one.
okay, so it's item
May be
C in
used
the
to
new one,
provide
gotcha.
shelter Okay? Yep, must be removed in the spring. So the only place where stacking was in the original 1057, that the council said we don't want
Yep,
this.
I just wanted to verify that I was on the same
Okay.
page as you.
The stacked bales are just for the big bales. Because we're writing in the exceptions rather than what you can have, this is what you can't have. But we can still make this work for 1061, but I think that item A will just work with it in an area that consists of regular hayland or large bales.
So you'll just add another letter in there that talks about the ag and industrial zoned areas. If that's the way this committee wants to go. Or change.
You think 250
You would change
feet
B,
too far?
is what you would do.
Yeah.
He wrote this for the hayland that is in
Yep.
city limits.
Yep,
Doesn't refer back to this problem.
yeah, well,
It's two different-
item B, it says in all their portion, irrespective of zoning, no large bales of hay, straw, or other baled feed may be stacked and kept in any quantity. I don't agree with that one.
So what you're asking is for item B to state in there, in commercial, in agricultural and
Item B
industrial
ought to be item
zones.
A from the original, from 1057, item B ought to say the words, plus these bales may be placed in twin rows. Okay?
And no stacking.
Because that would make, I mean, this would make everything work for everybody, except if you were out at the airport and you wanted to stack your hay before you put it on the truck. I don't care there, but. So I don't think B, the words in B shouldn't be in there at all, none of those words.
Right.
But the words from A 1057 ought to be under item B. In an area that is zoned as industrial or agricultural, baled materials may be kept for a period of time not to exceed 8 months and at least once a year. And if you want to put a date of, well, it says October 1 on there, you know, that they have to be out of there. I don't know that that's necessary. If they're not stacked, the danger that we have is almost eliminated, I think, because it'll be very quick to put that fire out if one bale catches on fire before we realize that the one next to it is on fire. But you're gonna limit that so much by having them not stacked up.
I guess I think that, what did you say? It says it needs to be moved off the property.
That's what he wrote,
By
by October 1.
That's what all of your contracts currently say for any hayland, is by October 1st, so he was pushing that in for the hayland contracts. But if it's different for your ag and industrial, that's,
So A is a section all to itself, other than what we're trying to accomplish. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
That's on the rented hayland that Winter has.
yeah.
But if we put A in, the old A from 57 into B with this extra line that the bales may be placed in twin rows, at least 10 feet apart from other twin rows, we don't need to put a limit on how long they can be. They just can't be stacked.
okay.
I ordinance for our ag industrial land and an ordinance for our hay land. Because we are dealing with two totally different things. Ag industrial land, I mean, you just say you can't put hay on your ag industrial land, and if you have to have it off by October 1, that's when you bring hay in.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess unless you wait till October 1 to haul it all in, and then you have 1 year. But it simplifies it so much if you just say clear it off once a year. Then you have all old hay gone.
Didn't the original ordinance mention something about 8 months?
About what, please?
Yeah.
8 months maximum?
I don't know if that was.
I don't know if that was original, but it was 57.
Yeah, it says materials may be kept for a period of time not to exceed 8 months.
Yeah,
And at least once a year, the site must be cleared.
right. So if you're bringing hay in and bringing it into an industrial or ag zone for storage, October 1 is separate. I mean, that's our hay lands, we're clearing that off.
Yep.
Because our leases end in the end of September, isn't it?
They actually end at year end. They end in December.
Okay.
I don't
But
know where
anyway,
that October
that
1st date
protects
came
you
from.
Having snow build up and stuff on an airport, totally different than, you know.
Oh,
That's
even
probably how
drifts,
it came
yeah.
up, yeah.
It can be just a different section within this ordinance to address that.
But it kind of is now if it's in subplot A. That number A really only pertains to the land that we're renting out to people, does it not?
Yeah.
So having it in this ordinance wouldn't hurt anything under item A.
Yeah.
And then if we put the exception of in ag and industrial owned, or zoned in item B, that keeps that information separate from item A. Because item A still says we can stack it. But item B is gonna say we can't.
Yeah.
Because, like, yeah, airport's probably different than the cemetery hayland. The cemetery hayland, you know, if you have it in there that says you can't stack your typical stack, then that means whoever rents it actually has to use a semi to get it out of there. You can't stack it for a hay sled to pick it up.
No. You still can stack it for item H, for the hayland, yeah. I'll have them separate it out so it's a little bit
I
more
think in
clear.
1061, he left out the part about, unless I miss it, obstruction of the visibility on a street corner. I didn't see that in the new ordinance, did you guys?
No, because I don't think any of our hayland really abuts up to a street corner, but it could
But
in the
items B,
future.
C, D, and E don't apply to our hayland. In the new ordinance, they apply to what can happen inside the city of Winter. And he left out obstruction of visibility, which is item C in 1057.
Okay,
So that
I'll
needs,
have them add that.
I think that needs to be in there. Wherever I put my decorations in my yard, I can't obstruct that corner. Okay?
With those changes, are you okay with this going to council Monday night, or do you want it to come back here before with the changes?
I need to see it after he
Okay.
makes the changes, because just like these, you're gonna make mistakes, you know?
Okay,
Okay?
can do. So it will not be 1061 next time, just FYI.
1061?
Yeah, it'll be a different
I
number
don't
because
care what number
of
it
different
is.
ordinances going through, but that's fine.
Okay.
1062 came through the electric committee. This was something that Kurt and Ray and Troy had asked for. that any new builds in the city would be required to hook up to our load management system. This is very common throughout other cities. I cannot tell you how this ordinance came to be. I did not draft it. I said this is what they recommended to look at other cities, and Paul's very good at looking at other cities, so I would assume that came to be. The one thing that was not mentioned in committee that did get put into here is that any electric charging stations for EVs will also be required to be put on load management, because that is something he had
It
seen
is
somewhere
in
else.
here, or it is not in here?
It is, yep.
I don't like that idea at all. I don't think we should allow electric charging stations because we do not have the capacity to support it. Whether
The load management
we
shuts
have
it
load
down.
management or not.
Load management will shut it down 100%. If we're reaching our peak, the purpose of load management is to connect those devices to this system. If it sees that somebody is charging, Brad, that car, and it's a rapid charger, and we're approaching our peak as a city, it shuts those devices down.
It can also make it so with the meters that we have in the load management, it's my understanding, so this would be much better coming from Kurt or Ray, who have a better understanding of it. Texas actually has it set up that you can only charge your home EVs during certain times. So they have time of use.
Nighttime hours.
And that's when you're not ever at risk of hitting your peak type of deal.
Between the hours of 1 and 5 a.m. It turns them on.
But Kurt told us a while ago that if we had more than 2 people on a block with an electric car charging their car, we wouldn't be able to handle it.
You would need to insert more transformers, is what
Okay.
he stated.
And at what cost?
That I don't know.
And at what time frame? We can't even buy transformers now. And so we're gonna let people in winter hook up to our electricity, use up all of our stuff that we don't have anyway, okay? Because we don't have the capacity if more than 2 people on a block plug their car in. Now, how many blocks do we have in winter?
325.
Okay? And if 2 people on a block can't plug their car in, how are we gonna get along? If these people wanna have electric cars, let them put in their own electrification system to make their green energy work.
I will say that that's an attorney question. Where the federal government is pushing this, it's my understanding if someone defies the green energy or whatever, then you could be at risk for losing some federal funding. But
No. We don't save anything on federal funding anyway. Look at the requirements we have to go through just to get it. Now, everybody in winter is gonna be subject to more expense in our electric division because we can't get the equipment we need to make more electricity available through our lines without spending a gazillion dollars, so.
I could also argue that you've gotten over $3 million worth of federal funding in the last 4 years.
Good.
This winter was the FEMA funding reimbursement of those snowstorms because we were in a blizzard area.
All of your ARPA, all of your COVID, all of your airport.
If you'd like to table and have a conversation with Kirk to make sure that you're comfortable,
I'd like to know if this is a cost to the customer.
No. We hook it up for free at this point in time for load management. In fact, if you're on it, you even get rebates from the city during certain times, in which that would be a separate resolution that would come through. And there's only certain things that we hook up to load
What do you-
management at this point in time.
can I pause you? What do you mean by a separate resolution in this ordinance?
It could be thrown in here if you want to. It's
I think
just
it
been
needs-
the current practice that any prices typically are put through by resolution because they're easier to change. But
So-
if we could throw it into here, that's fine too. Don't.
No, I'm fine with the resolution, but if you're gonna change an ordinance or create an ordinance on load management. I think the resolution needs to be addressed at the same time, talking about those rates, so they can see,
Yep.
okay, you do this, they get rebates, these are the discounts. Get it as one complete project, get everything done.
So, is this new homes, new businesses? new-
Every new home, every new business.
I mean,
It's,
to me, that's a little bit deterring for a new business to come to town and say they're gonna have some sort of a factory, for instance, where I have a family that works that has a water jet engraving machine. It has to be cold in that room. Would you build that in winter if they're at certain times they can shut your air conditioner off?
That's what it says.
Yeah, Kurt and Ray can explain it better. So it's in 15-minute increments,
I'm
and it
just-
doesn't,
I'm just
you're not
saying,
supposed to
us
notice
as
it
a
type
city
of deal.
Winter
but-
don't know anything about what that particular business is required to keep for cooling temperatures. And if the air conditioner goes off, the machine shuts off. Would you ever build like that?
Yeah, those are great questions for them.
Then you have, as a citizen, you have, you get told what you're gonna get charged for electricity. Now, say you're willing to buy X amount of electricity to keep your house cool.
Austin,
Now you're being told how much you can use.
Austin, let me refer you to item D, because it gives that business the opportunity to come and say, hey, I can't have my electricity shut off. You need to let me out of this requirement, and we can vote to do that.
If they agree.
If the city council, the 6 people that run the city, says that we want this business here, we're not gonna make them go on load management, we can do that.
Obviously, I'm gonna vote to table it.
After reading through it though, I could probably soften my stance on it. I still think green energy cars ought to be charged by green energy, not the citizens of Winter taking that risk of going over our peak and having to pay 19 cents instead of 3 cents for electricity. That's my concern. Poor people end up paying for the city
I
again.
think the electric car issue, charging stations is a whole nother ball of wax compared to this load management system on homes and businesses. I mean, I know the direction this is going is to control that, but right now, this is I think we're talking about two different things, aren't we?
Technically, yes.
I'm certain we are, but he put it in here.
but you're talking about rights, the rights of that business and a homeowner. Brad's saying that homeowner has no rights, and I'm not picking on you.
No,
But, I mean, you're saying that person has no right to have an EV if
no.
that they
No,
choose.
No, I'm saying if you wanna have an EV, you have a right to that, then figure out how you're gonna charge it outside of the public produced electricity. Just like we have citizens in this town that have already installed the stuff so that they can get an EV car. Okay? That's how it should be. But I'm not really too worried about it because EV is gonna go out the window anyway, just because of the marketability of what they have. Even the major car manufacturers are shutting them down, because they can't afford it. They can't afford to let them sit on the lot waiting for people to buy them. So, it's not that big a deal, but I just don't think the poor people in winter ought to have to pay for the people that can afford a $8,000 EV and then buy electricity from us to risk putting us over the limit of what we can handle, whether it be through the things on the poles, transformers or not. Because right now, if we've got more than 2 cars on a block, we gotta buy bigger transformers because we don't have enough, according to what I understand.
And I'd like to hear from CJ on that again.
Yep.
Totally. The transformers was a conversation. You bring up a point though, and the counterpoint that you may hear from those people that own the EVs, and I'm just being devil's advocate.
Yep,
I can afford to buy that car. I can afford to put it on load management if it's not gonna affect the city. Maybe they have to buy the transformer, upgrade the transformer. Maybe that's part of the equation. But if they can afford to upgrade the city's transformer and an EV in their station, why would we deny them? As long as they're paying for it
if we can set a fee high enough to do that, I'm all for it.
and they cover their own costs.
Because
and
I
they
just
want
don't
to.
think it should be, again, the poor people in winter.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But that's what made me think of this. Those other people may have the means
Yep,
to
yep.
put that in and want that. So why would we? I think there's a lot more discussion that needs to be happening
I agree.
on this.
But we need to have electrical people in here, not
Yeah.
peons like me that only know little bits.
And I think that's why in that clause D, you said council. The electrical superintendent and public works director are the ones that make that decision. I really
The
agree.
city council acts to allow it.
They would have to because technically it goes against your ordinance. Right now, if you were to pass this ordinance, says everyone has to. So if you're going to allow someone not to, it
They
has
would
to
make
be
the
city
decision
council.
to and then bring it to you because it breaks ordinance.
Yeah, and then we say yes or no.
Yeah.
That's why I say it. The
But I
city
think,
council has
I
the
think,
final say.
I think, well, just like right now you have the final say on this ordinance, you have to rely on his expertise and get him involved. That's what we're missing from this conversation
Yeah.
today.
That's why I said, I don't know enough about it.
That's, yeah, I agree. I know that I was at an electrical meeting when
Yes,
he
you
told
were,
us.
yes, yeah.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I remember some things.
Things that are important.
Not very many, but I remember some things.
Sure.
And when he said
Selective hearing.
2 people, 2 cars on a block,
Selective hearing, I heard,
yeah,
yeah.
would put us over.
Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah, and I wanna know if that's still the same. And if load management, if we have 2 cars on every block, what's that gonna do at 3 o'clock in the morning?
But you and I know that's not gonna happen.
2 cars on every block?
Yeah.
I don't
Unless the
know.
government
Back in the
forces.
twenties, it was 2 cars in every garage. You know, that's that one presidential candidate said, we'll have 2 cars in every garage. Yeah.
Now there's 2 cars in every garage, 3 in the driveway, 2 wrecked in the back that are sitting there on it.
10 seconds.
It's funny how things accelerate.
Okay,
I think we need to address it.
we're not ready for, take this
But we're
to
not.
council yet. Yep.
We're 1 for 3.
The next one is something that you guys address truck routes in the city limits. This is the haul route ordinance that never got brought up to the same verbiage as the truck route. So your truck route actually says that your public works director, your current ordinance for haul routes actually says your city engineer, and it also says city finance officer. I want nothing to do with it. So it adds in public works director in all of those places where, so it
City
matches up with the truck route. And then there was a few other things that it looks like Paul added in there too. And then when we talked about that truck route, when you push that through, it was to have a haul road plan, that gets submitted to the public works director, and he either approves or denies at that point in time, and that would be anyone that's over that 55,000 pounds in city limits. If they're going anywhere, even to pour some concrete for somebody's yard, ultimately the public works director can, by your truck route ordinance, can approve that via this haul route. So this is just finishing up something that didn't get finished up a few months ago. It is a very long ordinance, totally understand if you wanna take the 2 weeks to read it and go through it and.
So if I tear a house down, do I have to apply for a haul route?
It's a good question. That's a really good question.
The word debris screws me. If I'm just an individual contractor, I got a dump truck load of house material to throw away,
If it's over
It
55,
won't exceed 55,000.
where does it say
that's
that?
in your truck route where it starts
No,
talking
Austin is
about
saying
the-
that
Any side
truck.
street, if you're under 55,000, you can be on side street. You can
Okay,
be anywhere.
so I don't have to
believe-
worry about having a haul route?
Yes, that is correct.
This is only for anyone 55,000 pounds or more.
Yep.
And that says that somewhere in here?
Yeah, on
Not in the
page,
beginning.
it's on
Schedule one
page
truck routes.
2. You, Schedule 1B.
Yeah.
Okay, for truck route. Okay,
Haul routes are for those,
So the truck routes actually says, any construction project for which the haul road will be required must be approved by the Public Works Director and must comply with the contractor's responsibility, which is page 1. So they go hand in hand with each other.
so if I tear down a house, or if I have a dump truck loaded debris to go to the landfill, I gotta tell Troy.
If it's gonna be over 55,000, yep.
Okay. Item B does not say that. Right at the beginning, it does not tell me that if I'm over 55,000, I gotta do this. This says any. On the very first page. Any contractors performing jobs within the corporate limits of the city who haul sand, rock, gravel, cement, or debris shall not less than 2 weeks prior to hauling designate to the Public Works Director any city, street that the contractor will utilize. That line needs to have over 55,000.
I think so, right before not less than 2 weeks, I think it would fall right in there.
Yep, fall right in, and then I know I'm exempt.
I mean, it does tell you later on, but this one says,
Sure.
I see what you're saying, Brad.
Yeah.
It says anybody with a little dump trailer or something that's gonna haul shingles has to call
Gotcha.
Troy and say, hey, where can I drive?
I agree with you, Austin.
Yeah.
That was my concern when I first read the first page.
Okay.
That's where my rules ought to be. I mean, what qualifies me to have to use a haul route or a truck route?
is a building permit issued? Does it recognize that in this first section? It talks about building permits. I thought I had read that.
Where do you see building permits? Sorry.
I was reading through it, and I thought that this had to be submitted with a building permit.
Not that I know of, because there's not always a building, if you're just
Right.
replacing concrete with concrete, there wouldn't be a building permit.
Right, understand that.
I just wonder if we're making assumptions that everybody knows the definition of what qualifies as a haul road.
I think in most cases, you brought up the example of people tearing down homes in the city of Winter. I think all those conversations do happen with the Public Works Director to coordinate the use of the street department as part of the cleanup winter program that we have. And I think that most of these conversations happen.
Okay.
If you want to spell out,
Because isn't a haul road for if you're gonna make multiple trips?
yeah,
I mean, isn't that the purpose of it?
yes.
The other thing that was discussed way back when this was first brought up was some of your food delivery drivers that are getting off of your concrete streets and then they park on the side and it is hurting some of our side streets. So they would have to have a year-long haul permit type of deal, and if we see where they're parking every time it's causing indentations, then they would have that contractor's responsibility to replace where they're hurting our side streets. Not saying that they can't do it, just saying that, hey, you're gonna have to put some responsibility if you're gonna bring over 55,000 on a side street.
There's a lot to digest here.
It is.
All of this is new, right? This is all new stuff
Kind of.
If it's in yellow, it's new.
Yeah.
on this haul route
But
stuff?
the premise of this is when we were doing, it used to be an ordinance in a very vague definition that new construction or tear out of properties, contractors were ultimately responsible for replacing the condition of our streets to what they were prior to the project. Over the course of the last decade, little less, we've seen some projects happen where there was no joint inspection done by the two, no discussion of a haul route. Our curb and gutter was damaged or streets were damaged and they were never replaced to the condition that they were previously. Troy wanted a joint meeting and inspection of these and to make sure that they were gonna be replaced to that original condition.
Yep,
Much like the state did with us,
Yep.
On our streets prior to this highway project.
yep.
First Street.
There's a lot to read here. I'll need more time.
Well, last week, we didn't have a lot of information 2 weeks ago. This week, there's a lot of reading information and discussions for you guys to have with Mr. Jensen. And you guys can call Mr. Jensen or Troy or the city engineer at any time pertaining to this one, because they're identified quite frequently in there.
The resolution is on the rental rates then?
Yes.
Yes.
Are we to that?
Yes, sir.
So I was asked to find out what other cities do when it comes to renting out of their equipment, allowing of city employees time to work on other individuals' projects, different things like that. This has come up quite a bit in the last few months. Everything in this resolution up to the equipment rates have been our rates. In fact, I think I brought this to finance maybe 2 weeks ago and they approved the equipment rates, but then we found these other items in there too. It more or less says city equipment. Your state statute 912.5 says that a city council can determine what their rental rates will be and that it will be the same for public as it is for private. If you're going to rent it, you must make it available to anyone and everyone for everything. So that's where it comes in. If we're going to do it for one, we have to do it for all, which is fine, can do that. We have our rates set, but this just clearly defines the process of it, how it goes. So, services are performed or equipment furnished by the city of Winter to other political subdivisions, persons, firms, and corporations. The following charges shall be imposed and invoiced. And providing the use of city employees, personnel, equipment, or materials pursuant to this chapter shall not be allowed or commenced without one proper written application to the Public Works Director to allow the city's use of its employees, personnel, equipment, or materials, and a clear statement setting forth the nature of the work to be performed and the duration of the same, and the Public Works Director's confirmation and approval of the foregoing written agreement and his approval thereof. Further, the Public Works Director or at his or her discretion may decide and elect to not allow the application unless such labor, work, equipment, and materials is required by statute or ordinance and has been previously approved and ordered by the city council. And
While you're reading this, are you marking the things that need to be changed?
in my head, and then
Yeah,
I'll go back,
statute,
yep.
Yeah.
All billing requirements are met in the office of the finance officer. And be it further resolved, all work done on or behalf of any non-city entity that is agreed or permitted pursuant hereto shall be supervised by the personnel of the city. And all property or equipment used or provided pursuant hereto shall be used or operated only by employees or personnel of the city. And all rates, charges, and expenses computed for labor shall be portal to portal and include time necessary for loading, delivery, setup, takedown, return to city facilities, and replacement of equipment at the end of the workday. No officer or employee other than your public works director shall use or permit the use of any city time, funds, personnel, equipment, or personal or real property for the private use of any persons, unless it's specifically stated again. So, and then when it's an accident involving city property is involved, then we will submit to their insurance, or sometimes there's not insurance to submit to, and we would submit it directly to the person who caused the accident. We've seen this all over. I've billed for stop signs being hit by trucks, I've billed for street lights being hit, I've billed for telephone lights, all these different things. Any accident involving city property, if somebody hits one of our water mains, we've billed for that too. So it just clearly defines the process of it.
So did I hear you read something about we're gonna have somebody to watch you do the work?
Yes, if you're using our equipment, there must be city personnel there to supervise that the
To
equipment is being
supervise, not
correct.
to operate the equipment?
It says supervise in there.
Okay. What's our fee for supervision services? 'Cause I know
Hourly.
we have charges for people to run them.
In the
Man hour of labor too.
In the fourth resolved, it says resolved, all property or equipment used or provided pursuant hereto shall be used or operated only by employees or personnel of the city.
Okay, then I heard earlier than that we could provide a supervisor to watch. Let me see.
All work done for or on behalf of any non-city entity that is agreed or permitted pursuant hereto shall be supervised by personnel of the city. And all equipment shall be used or operated only by employees.
Where are you reading that?
So
The
it
third
was just the next
resolve,
paragraph up. Yep,
all work done for or on behalf of any non-city entity that is agreed or permitted pursuant hereto shall be supervised. So somewhere, we're letting somebody else run our equipment.
not necessarily. It could just be that, it
People
might
are
be that
trying
there's
to help
someone
with the project.
supervising it while the other people are running the equipment too.
What?
You're allowing a supervisor and the workers as well. So you're saying that there can be a supervisor there, plus our employees are gonna run the equipment. So you can bill for that supervisor's hours
Two
too.
totally separate issues. The fourth one, all property or equipment used or provided shall be used or operated only by our personnel.
Right?
All work done, let's say,
Yep, I understand that. but
somebody's
then what's the
volunteered
sub-
their time to help, they're under the supervision of a City of Winter employee. So if you've got a group of 5 people helping with a project, they are not in control of the project, the city employee is. The equipment in the very next line can only be ran by City of Winter people.
When we're working for a non-city entity.
I'm gonna use, quite honestly, looking at when you did the baseball field,
Yep,
you were
I was
You were
asked by
contributing
the
your-
city to do the work.
right, but according to state law, there should have been somebody there that should have been supervising you. Even though you took charge at that time, you would fall under the third resolution. You were doing the work on behalf, and it should have been supervised by personnel of the city. Any equipment of the cities should have been ran by city employees in the next resolution. That's only an
I don't know
example.
if that analogy is as good as the one when I rented the Packer from the city to do my parking lot, a private business. When I volunteered my time to work at the baseball field, I think that'd be a different situation than what you have here.
Would you agree in this one? I'm gonna use
Yeah.
your example with the
Yeah, yeah.
Packer.
Yep,
It's a piece of equipment, all property or equipment,
I should not have been allowed to drive that,
right?
but it wouldn't, I mean, it didn't matter. I paid him $1,500 and I had to make it run.
Yeah. I think we would do it differently today is what I'm saying.
I would agree, because that's a private business.
Yes,
But if we ask somebody to mow at the baseball field, they can surely use our lawnmowers, and we confirmed that already when I was doing it. But unless something, and things change,
under the supervision of a city personnel. They can still run. Quite honestly, I look at this and I say that field groomer shouldn't be run by anybody that's not a city employee. At a tournament, baseball games.
Well,
It should-
supervised, I mean, you can look at it as, you just don't get the keys and you don't just go
Right.
whenever you want.
They can run it with a city,
But
actually,
what I'm saying
according
is-
to this, they can't even run that equipment. This has to be
I
ran.
mean, you can look at supervised two ways, is you're being supervised because you know.
somebody
when they
told you
have-
how to do it.
When they
Yeah.
have it, or when they're gonna use it, you
Yep.
know, they've been told how to run it.
Yeah, because
Or
technically.
you can
yeah,
look at supervised means that I have to be watching you from the dugout.
Right,
to run
so,
the track.
so let's let you go ahead and do the work.
But in the very next line, and you're always grammatically correct, and shall.
Yep,
In the very next line, at the very end, it says only.
Both of those paragraphs are
Ex-
not required by state statute. These are what other cities require and are thrown in there.
Okay, that's not state statute.
no,
Okay,
because I
Okay.
know this, that when the city makes a resolution that Brad Schramm will maintain the baseball field with city equipment, I was covered by the city's insurance policy and everything. And that, I'm certain, Jody, that is still the same.
but you would
Because
agree,
in the springtime.
in this one, you would agree in this one, I'm looking at the fourth result. Shall be used or operated only by employees or personnel in the city. That line needs to be addressed.
Okay, so if Brad Schramm, just like the city council did, they voted to authorize me to take care of the baseball field. I am now a personnel of the city. Not an employee, but I was a personnel authorized by the city, and that's what the insurance people said as well. Which is why I know that the city council authorized Brad to do that. Yep,
Supervised by personnel of the city. I don't think you're personnel of the city, it's under the supervision of that person. In the next line, I'm reading this literally.
yep, I
And-
understand that.
Shall
What you're
be,
reading is
But let's
correct.
not forget, this is not the state law, Jody.
No,
This
but if
is an
you-
ordinance from some other town.
right, that's why I'm telling you guys.
Yeah, if we
You need
pass
to address this
Brad
because
Schramm
it
wouldn't be able
says-
to do the work.
That's my point.
And I don't
And
know that
nobody
that's what,
shall
I don't
use our
know that that's
equipment.
what we want. Because in the springtime, when the city doesn't have their summer help, and we have, spring baseball, high school baseball, there wasn't ever one city employee that took care of the baseball field until the middle of May.
Those two lines need to be addressed then.
Yep.
I
Yep.
agree.
We need to allow Danny Provacek to get on that machine and drive it.
Good, Austin Calhoun, Austin Ritchie are the
Yeah,
coaches, they're gonna be
If
up there.
approved by the city, and that's what
Yeah.
they
You could
did.
just add that in there too, unless otherwise approved by city council. You
Okay,
could put that in there.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Because there was a time when a pump went out, and they didn't tell Dennis Schroeder to order a pump. They told me to order the pump, and I said, I don't work for the city. We're telling you to order the pump. So, I mean, the city can do what they want to do, if they just have to want to. But I like the idea of just add that line that says unless otherwise approved by the city.
So the second part of this, according to this, when we do one of these projects, we have to bill it out at this rate, 100%. Nobody has the authority, once council passes this resolution, to deviate from these rates.
No
except-
individual, yeah,
No individual,
Yeah.
and it should come back to council.
if they want to change it.
That's my whole point.
I'm wondering about the word sewer rodding machine. Are you sure that's the right term? Shouldn't that be, I used to call it rooting.
Your public works director and his employees went through this and agreed to these rates and these phrases. And it's been in there that way for quite a while.
Has it? Okay.
And final thing is our rate should be higher than anybody's that are in town.
Should be way higher than a
Private
regular
business.
guy. Yep.
Yes.
Some of the stuff that I'm familiar with, it looks like it should be.
You're,
It is?
I mean, just some of the stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue what it would cost, and that's hydro seeding, but, you know, I'm just looking at skid loaders, four-wheelers.
we got two more to get through, and I'd like to get through them, so.
Are we gonna, is this for presentation Monday?
If you want it, that's up to you. If you guys want to see that
Fix the word
change,
statute.
then let's table this and make sure that this comes back and you guys get another look at it in 2
Okay.
weeks. So we've got one going through and 4 we're tabling until you guys can see the corrected verbiage.
Change order number 1 is simply just adding in the extra tonnage for the overlay as what was talked about at the streets committee on Monday, due to the streets being in that bad a shape, which is also where your haul route and truck route comes in, is some of those items. So all it is just adding it in there. Total increase from the bid was $105,080.72. It's just a balancing change order is all it is from the contract. And the last item,
And the reason
oh.
for this is why? Because we did more streets or?
No. So if you take a look at this, Brad, on change order number 1 in the middle of the page, it shows 36,349 square yards.
Yep.
Originally, it was 36,000. So it did go over 349 for some of these areas. And the original was 72,000, so there's $698 more that was for the milling. The tonnage, and we started taking a look at this, this is where we need the change order. So we got everything out, and on 9th, 10th, and 11th Street, there was no base course underneath, it was just clay. And they made a decision to put a 1-inch mat down to balance those streets, to level them off, and then they come back in with their 2-inch mat. Originally, the tonnage was projected by Tuminous and the Winter Street Department for those 36,000 square yards to be a price of .11 per square yard times 164 a ton. Well, by the time they got done milling some of these, they got really thin, and they actually put down .1264 tons per square yard to get these streets correct. And the change order has to reflect that additional tonnage and those 349 more square yards because of the condition. Streets Committee on Monday heard from Troy and Kelly, and they think they have it in their overall budget to handle this without any more transfers. Committee was assured of that. Because the quantity is different, and you don't know the quantities, you could put a 1/2-inch mat on those streets to make it work or do it correctly. He made the decision to do it correctly, and that tonnage came in heavy. And this is the change order that legally we have to do.
Streets Committee.
And
Had approved
Austin,
to
if
do
I
it, but-
misrepresented anything, or you heard or saw anything different, please share. The original tonnage was thought to be 39,600 tons, or excuse me, 3,960 tons. So they actually, it took 636.48 tons more because of the conditions of the streets.
And I maintain that we should have known that before we ever tore them apart. We're not doing our preliminary work in order to come within the budget that we set for doing these projects.
So,
2 years in a row now,
Brad,
I'm gonna vote yes to do it.
but Brad, I gotta ask you the question, because I don't understand the answer to this, to your question.
Okay?
When we know the square footage that we're gonna mill, and they're within 1%, okay? How do they know, and they don't know, the conditions of those streets underneath? They had bituminous look at it. They gave us the quote on the tonnage. Bituminous, an asphalt company,
Yep.
was working with the Streets and Public Works Director, and they had a number pegged, and you don't know until you mill those. And after they're milled, what do? Do you leave
Jody, they're
them?
called core samples. Before you ever mill anything off the street, you find out, what do we have under this? Okay? And until you know what's under it, you cannot possibly have any idea what it's gonna take to fix it.
So this is a question for Jacob, our engineer. Then, at this point, we need to ask him, why aren't we getting core samples
Yep.
prior to, and see what he says? I don't know the answer.
Because
I
here's
think
the
it's a
deal.
good suggestion, because I'm
We
equally.
go out there and we think we're gonna do 40 blocks of streets and we're
Yeah.
gonna mill and grind, okay? So we drive across the streets and we say, oh, this one needs done, and this one needs done, and yep. And generally, it's all in agreement that these streets need to be done, okay? My point is that because we don't know the nature of what needs to be done, and we mill the stuff off before the asphalt people ever get here, once we mill it off, we're stuck,
Yeah, we are.
okay? And now here we are.
Yep.
We didn't know that we didn't have anything but dirt
Clay.
underneath the
Clay.
asphalt. Okay, we should have known that before we said we want to do 40, and I make that number up.
Yeah, I know you do.
We want to do 40 blocks. Maybe because we had a street that only had clay that needed to be reworked, okay, at an additional cost. Maybe we should have done 20 blocks and done them right, instead of now we put 3 inches of asphalt over clay.
I agree with you, but the question
Without the proper
becomes,
compaction,
I got,
it's not gonna last.
my question now is not directed to you. I'm gonna take your suggestion, and I think we have to ask our engineering company, are we able to take those core samples, get the answers from him right now? Because if he says yes, we should be able to get core
We
samples.
should be doing that every block we're doing. What's underneath this?
They would do I would bet they would do several core samples on a city block. And you go do your 40 blocks and times 4, and you're probably gonna spend this money in core samples instead of extra asphalt.
Well, that could be,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know.
But
we might spend that money in core samples, I don't know. And I don't know that, that's possible. I agree with you,
But I'm gonna submit to you that you have a clay road and you put down 1 inch of packed asphalt, and then you put 2 inches of packed asphalt on top of it, you've done yourself no good.
they did say that they dug out the bad spots and recompacted them.
and during their questioning,
Which is just what we did on 6th Street.
during their questioning from council, there was a concern. What do we do now that we know that there's clay, only clay under there? Should we dig this out, lay it as you've suggested with a base, sub-base and a
Yep,
base?
yep.
And then the cost goes way up. And we also heard that 12th Street had base in sub-base under it. And when they got to 9th, 10th, and 11th, they were surprised to find that it was just clay, and they had no base course and sub-base underneath there. So you bring up I mean, if,
But I don't know what it takes to, I don't know what it costs to do a core sample.
I don't either. And that's what we'll
We
find
got lots
out.
of backhoes, we can dig our own damn hole, you know?
We're gonna do the contract.
All that is for you guys to take and review to make sure that everything was put in there. It's a lot of information, don't intend for you to get it through today. We have till January 1st. It just has the edits that were recommended. I want you to take it home and review it.
All right.
That's all that is.
Do you wanna go ahead? You must have another meeting.
I do, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. And I knew we were running a little long, but I wanted to get through those two. So